Chapter 28. Rhea. We shadowed the three women the whole next day to get a sense of what they were up to. The driver did things on her own, and the two others stuck together. So we split up, and Alice followed the driver, and I followed the other two. My day was boring. The two women spoke only English, so I had no idea what they were saying. But also, they were only interested in shopping and eating. I stood behind walls and posts and watched as they tried on clothing in fancy shops, bought exotic food at the Torksin, and haggled with starving farmers for an antique ring or a necklace. "My day was great," said Alice when we met up later. "I was able to eavesdrop on a number of conversations she's had with locals. Her name is Rhea, and she's a journalist. Plus, I was right, she's from Toronto." "Did the Stalinists put on some plays for her?" I asked. "Not this time," said Alice. "She's on this trip without anyone from the government. She went inside factories and interviewed farmers herself. She doesn't speak Ukrainian, but she's fluent in Russian. I don't think anyone's fooling her." "That's impressive," I said. "Are you going to ask her if she'll get us out of the country?" "Yes," she said. "I heard her say that she's leaving tomorrow, so we'll have to ask her tonight. She's out for dinner right now, so we should wait for her to come back." We snuck into the hotel and waited in the shadows close to Rhea's hotel room. When Rhea came back from supper, she passed so close to us when she walked down the hallway that I could have touched her sleeve if I had put out my hand. When she was in her room, we counted to 100, and then Alice went up to Rhea's door and knocked. I crept closer. Rhea opened the door. She looked at Alice and said in Russian, "I'm sorry, but I have no food for you." Alice said something to her in English. I don't know what it was exactly, but it included the words Canadian and Toronto. Rhea gasped. She opened the door wide and gestured for Alice to step in. I got out of the shadows. "May I come in too?" I asked in Russian so she'd understand me. "My name is Neil, and I'm Alice's friend, but I don't speak English." Rhea looked surprised, but she said in Russian, "That's fine, come in." The room had a table with chairs by the window, so we sat there, and I listened as Alice spoke in Russian, telling Rhea the story of how she and her father decided to come to the Soviet Union to help Stalin, but then they gradually realized how his plans were killing people. "I was idealistic just like you when I first came here," said Rhea. "It's been a shock to find out the truth. My father was arrested as a traitor for taking these photographs," said Alice, pulling them from her bag and fanning them out on the table. Rhea picked up one, and then another, and examined them carefully. "These photographs clearly show what's happening here." "Can we leave with you in your car?" asked Alice. "We need to get out of the country so we can tell the world what Stalin is doing." "I can't do that," said Rhea. "It took a lot of planning and coordination for me to do this huge cross-country journey through the famine lands, and I've just begun. It's dangerous but important that I personally take photographs and write in the newspapers about what I see with my own eyes." Alice slumped down on the chair. "I guess my father shouldn't have risked his life taking these pictures then, if you say they're not necessary." "You are also a witness," said Rhea. "The Soviets are destroying photographs when they find them. The more that get out, the better. It's just that I can't stop my trip to drive you out of the country." "I appreciate what you're doing," said Alice. "It is very important. But you are our last hope." "We've been trying to save money for train fare to Ternopil," I said. "But we barely have enough day-to-day to survive." "Ternopil?" asked Rhea. "Why would you think it's a good idea to go there?" "It's outside the Soviet Union," I said, "and it's the only place I have family." "Let me show you something," said Rhea, getting up and rooting through some papers. She came back holding a hand-drawn map and spread it out on the table. "This is where we are," she said, putting a finger on Kharkiv. "I know," said Alice. She set her finger onto Ternopil. and this is where we need to go. There's a British embassy in Poland. I can get back to Canada, report Papa's arrest. And I know that it's nearly 800 kilometers, which is why we need a lot of money to get there." "Do you know where the famine is?" asked Rhea. "In all the places in the Soviet Union with farms." "No," said Rhea. "It's not in the Russian parts, only in the parts where Ukrainians live. If you want to get out of the famine, you only need to go 65 kilometers north to the border between Ukraine and Russia. As soon as you cross that border into Russia, the famine ends." "How is that possible?" I asked. "Aren't the farms in Russia also being collectivized?" "I've seen what's been happening with my own eyes," said Rhea. "Stalin is collectivizing farms all over, but he's targeting Ukrainians for extinction. They're being starved to death, executed, exiled to slave labor camps in the north." "But why would he do that?" asked Alice. "He wants Ukrainian land, but not Ukrainian culture and traditions. He wants the Soviet Union to be Russian." Her words stunned me. "But we're Ukrainian," I said. "Won't we be stopped crossing the border into Russia?" Rhea sat back and looked at us both, and her brow wrinkled in thought. "Alice," she said, "I assume you're a young pioneer?" "I am," said Alice. "I have my necktie and pin. I also have my Canadian birth certificate and Soviet identification papers. I don't have my passport because it was confiscated when we arrived." "All the more reason not to go to Ternopil," said Rhea. "The Soviets would shoot you at the border." "I have a young pioneer necktie and pin too," I said. "But you're from a Ukrainian village, aren't you?" asked Rhea. "So you don't have Soviet identification papers. They don't give those to Ukrainian villagers." I pulled my papers from my pocket and put them on the table. "Alice's father made me these counterfeit ones." Rhea opened the booklet and examined it carefully. Her eyebrows rose. "He did a good job," she said. "You can travel through the Soviet Union with these. You've got to remember to speak Russian, though, not Ukrainian." "Getting into Russia means that we'll escape the hunger," said Alice. "But I will be no further ahead in getting my photograph seen by the right people." "You'll need to get yourself to Moscow," said Rhea. "To the British embassy there." I looked at the map. "Moscow is just as far away as Ternopil," I said. "But you'll be out of the famine area in 65 kilometers," said Rhea. "That's key." Rhea left the next day with the two other women, as she had planned, but she paid for an extra night on the hotel room so we could stay to rest and recuperate before our big trip. "There's hot water for that bathtub," she said. "Clean yourselves up." She also got us food, dried fruit and cheese and bread that would travel well, but also delectably soft bread and fatty kobasa that we could eat once she had gone. "I'm on my way to Tractorsloy," she said. "If there's any news about your father, I'll write about it in the papers." "Thank you for all your help," said Alice. "Dress in your young pioneer uniforms and speak Russian. Good luck and Godspeed," she said. After Rhea left, we snuck Roman into the hotel room, and the three of us shared the soft bread and kobasa, and we stayed up all night planning. I drew a map like Rhea's and begged Roman to cross the border with us, but he refused. "If I leave, who will help the street kids to survive?" he asked. That night, Roman and I slept on one of the beds, and Alice got the other. After all this time of being on the run, it felt strange to have a soft pillow under my head and a cover on top of me. It also felt luxurious to be so clean. I closed my eyes, and the image of my map was crisp in my mind. The Russian border was tantalizingly close. Just by crossing it, I'd have food again. When I thought we were going to Ternopil, I looked forward to reuniting with Auntie Paulina and Tanya. I had also reconciled myself to never seeing my brother or sister again. But with food and freedom just 65 kilometers away, that changed everything. I could visit Slavko, maybe even carry food to him. And it left the door open for Yulia as well. Maybe we'd all be together again in the future. But first, I needed to help Alice get over the border and in contact with someone at the British Embassy. She had to get those photographs out, and she had to try to free her father.